In this skills demonstration, I want to show you how to add persistent storage to your apps. Up until now, everything we have done in our app goes away when the app closes down. But often, we'd like to retain some values, such as usernames or other preferences, for use in a later session. This is actually really simple in App Inventor. So let's get started. I'm going to create a really simple interface for us to get started to demonstrate this. So I'm going to add a text box, and I'm going to add a button, and I'm going to call this button Store. And then I'm going to add a second button. I'm going to call this Retrieve. And I'm going to add a label. Okay, so the basic idea for this app is to just demonstrate persistent storage. I'm going to type a value in here. I'm going to press the Store button. And when I want to, I can push Retrieve, and it's going to find the value on disk and put it into this text box. All right, so the other thing that I need is I need a storage object. And down here on my palette, I've got the storage drawer. And there are a couple different ways to go about doing this. The easiest way is we're going to create a local file, and it's called a tiny database, tinydb. You see, if you want to actually use some cloud storage, we can use either Fusion tables or a tiny web database, but you kind of need to do some additional setup outside of the app for those to work. So for right now, let's just do our tiny database. Okay. Let's take a look at the block editor. So what is it that I'd like to do? When button 1 is clicked, that's my storage button. What do I want to do? I'm going to go into tiny database, and there's only a few functions to work with here. I'm going to store value. And the way I store values in the tiny database is I give it a name value pair or a tag value pair. And so what's the name that I want to call this thing? Store text. It can be anything. Store text. It can be anything you want. This is effectively like creating a variable name for the data to be stored on disk. And the value that I want to store there is the text from text box 1. Okay. My other button was designed to retrieve data. And so in the tiny database function, I'm going to go in and say get value. And notice it's got to attach to something. It's going to attach to my label. I'm going to set my label 1 text to go out to the database and get the value associated with the tag. Duplicate it. So I want to get the store text. Now, here's the interesting one. This extra parameter here is, what's the value I want to give you if I can't find store text? So if that value is not stored in the database, I'm just going to give you blank. Well, I'm going to type a value in here. I'm going to say nothing stored. Nothing stored. There we go. Goodness. All right. And that's all there is to it. I now have persistent storage. I can store text on the permanent storage device associated with my app. Okay. Let's take a look at it. See what it looks like on the screen. So to start with, I don't have anything stored, right? So I'm going to try and retrieve something and see what happens. Well, it didn't find it, obviously. Right? Now I'm going to go out here. Oops. I'm going to store something in my database. I'm going to store it, and I'm going to retrieve it. not too terribly interesting. But here's the interesting thing. Let me go ahead and close the app down. I'll get started up again. Oops. Let me start up again. Let me reconnect this to App Inventor. Connect. Reset the connection. And AI Companion. SBURRW. Connect. Now if I reconnect and try to retrieve that value, notice that it finds it and is able to pull it from the SD card. It's not dependent upon the session, the active session that the app is running in. Okay. The really cool thing about this is that I can store lots of different kinds of values. Right? What value do I want to store? Well, I showed you I can store text. Clearly, I can store numbers just as well. Really amazing, I can store lists. In fact, I can even store colors. So I'm going to store the color red under the tag colors. Okay, and what do? I'm going to set the background color of the screen to retrieving this value. Oops, duplicate. Okay, so I want to retrieve colors. Now here's something that's kind of important. The tag that's not stored, I can't say nothing's stored because the background color won't receive that text value. It needs another color value in there. I'll just put that color in there. Okay. So if I go out to my app, if I try to retrieve right now, there's no colors. So it changed the background color to this cyan color. But if I push the store button, it stored the value, the color red, and now if I retrieve, I can restore color values as well. Any kind of value that we're working with in App Inventor can be stored and retrieved in this tiny database. Okay, that gives us the basics for storage, persistent storage of data using App Inventor. We'll find that this is very valuable in a lot of apps that we want to create. Like I said, especially for creating things like settings or usernames or preferences that we want to retain from instance to instance.